Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So there was a couple of pieces this week talking about the Miami Heat, and a name that has been kind of floating in the Heat ether lately. What is that? Like it's lingering around. It's like bzzz. It's buzzing around a little bit, and you've been hearing the name and curious to see if there's anything to it, if there's any juice to it, because it does feel like you're starting to hear this name be brought up. It could be agent play. It could be true interest. I don't know. But that name is Jonathan Kuminga of the Golden State Warriors, who is, one of their young pieces, has been in a little bit of a tumultuous relationship publicly with the coach, Steve Kerr, a little bit of a Tyler Hero situation, if you will, from Tyler's year 3, where he was kind of tired of Eric Spoelstra continuing to have him come off the bench, but he was, the good soldier, but found himself to be a starter. It's honestly almost exactly on that age range. But the former number 7 overall pick is now becoming a restricted free agent, and there's a lot of rumblings that he wants a fresh start somewhere else. Now, in restricted free agency, you do put yourself in a position where he can go out there and he can go get a deal. There's not a ton of teams with cap space, so I'd imagine this is going to be something where he probably has to be in a sign and trade scenario, which always has some interesting ramifications. But there is the Heat have been mentioned as one of those teams to look out for on a couple of occasions with some reports that are out there. Hoops Hype, Mike Scotto has come out. I don't know if it's Scotto or Scotto. I always screw it up, and I always feel like I have the opposite right of where it would be. But Mike Scotto, I'll just go with that, has referred to it as a fallback option for the Miami Heat if they are unable to get Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kevin Durant. We don't even know if Giannis is going to become a thing. The Durant thing, we're obviously in a stalemate right now. So let's just say Durant ends up in Houston or San Antonio or Minnesota, and the Heat do strike out. It is a fascinating question to ask, hey, where do the Heat go from here? We were discussing today on the radio show, like, hey, which big do you feel like has a higher ceiling, Nikola Jovic or Kel'el Ware? And I think it's a really good question because I think both of them have a lot of talent in their own right, but what is their actual peak role on a team? What does that look like, right? As Jonathan Kuminga is got a high assessment of himself, and the question has to be asked, all right, what is his ideal role and what does the ceiling of that look like? Because we could see around the league, some guys miss on the opportunities of having the full potential flourish for a guy. And I don't fully put the blame of the Warriors on this. Like, I get it. You're in a place where you have a legend like Steph Curry, and sometimes things got to get sped up a little bit, and you're not necessarily in the best place. I think this happened a little bit with Jovic trying to find his role, and even though Jimmy was a huge advocate of his, it's a little bit tough of like, hey, can this kid help you win now? Same thing goes for Kel'el. But if the Miami Heat do strike out on Kevin Durant and looking at somebody like Jonathan Kuminga, the idea of it intrigues me. I think it's at least looking at things in a different tilt of like, hey, can we find our Tyrese Halliburton where a team drafted him and they didn't see all the potential? And can we see our Jalen Brunson of a guy that other teams looked at and said, if you want to use a Panthers parallel, you see plenty of that with the Reinhardts, the Bennetts, the Kachucks. Not all apples to apples because certain guys did want to be here, but other teams looked at them and said, nah, I don't think that guy is this. Seth Jones, a little bit more of a veteran, but you guys get the idea. Can the Heat find somebody overlooked by somebody else? And there's been some other reports that came out. This is from Mark Stein, Jake Fisher, and their newsletter, which is a fun thing to subscribe to during the offseason and during trade time. But they said Kaminga will be soon becoming a restricted free agent. There have been no tangible rumblings to that point in Brooklyn, which is, of course, the team that has the significant salary cap space, that they plan to pursue Kuminga with their $55 million operating room, trying to forecast a sign and trade scenarios that could potentially materialize for the bouncy 22-year-old swingman have been difficult to pinpoint until the Durant situation is settled. Maybe Miami, for example, would make a sign and trade run at Kaminga in the event the Heat don't win the trade race to acquire Durant. Sources say Miami has registered a level of interest in Kaminga in previous transaction cycles. And it did feel like Kaminga was a name that we had heard in the Jimmy Butler trade talks when all of this was going down. I think that was probably one of the names that intrigued Heat fans the most. The interesting thing with the Heat is, okay, what is he going to command? Because I always find this interesting for young guys. This guy, high appraisal of himself. I think the word was he was seeking, I think, at least $100 million deal. So somewhere in the realm of 4 years, 25 a year, potentially all the way up to, 4 years, 120 to get 30 a year. So where are the Heat at in making an offer like that for Jonathan Kuminga, who played only 47 games this year, dealt with a lot of injuries. The years prior to that, pretty durable, 70, 67, 74 games. Started 40. This was the weird one. He started 46 games his third year and averaged over 16 a game. This year, primarily came off the bench. Not like the world's greatest shooter in the world, but a real driving force, can get to the free throw line, a lot of athleticism. And so I think that those are some things as the Heat are looking to get more athletic and to get more burst. If they were to do this, what's the piece that's going back to the Warriors is a little bit of a weird one, right? Because it's like, all right, what would the Warriors want? Because there's another team that's been kicked around, and that's been the Chicago Bulls. And that one makes a ton of sense. You look at somebody like Josh Giddey. They kind of just did this with Josh Giddey, and it seemed to to bear fruit from in the second half, like a cast-off man, odd man out in OKC. They take advantage of the odd man out in Golden State. And a lot of that's like, hey, trade Vucevic back. There's an obvious center need for the Golden State Warriors that seems like a perfect fit. What would they want back in the Heat scenario? Well, you're not trading Bam, you're not trading Tyler, you're not trading your two bigs, I'd imagine, in Kalel and Nico. So, like, what would they want? Like, what would be the thing? Like, is it just a trade back Andrew Wiggins to the Golden State Warriors and that's your deal? We know how much they love him, how much they value him. He seemed a lot happier over there. Kaminga doesn't seem too happy. The interesting thing is their owner, Joe Lacob, seems to really love Jonathan Kaminga. So I don't know like what the push and pull is going to be there, but you're basically essentially having the coach make this choice. And obviously Steve Kerr's got the stripes to get what he wants. And I would say, like, Kerr spoke this offseason about how he got intel from Spo about how Jimmy was going to work for them. I'd imagine, like, if they did kick the tires on this, Spo would do the same with Kerr. Be like, hey, what do you think XYZ, how this would fit? And timeline's a fascinating thing. We always talk about timelines and what's the right timeline of things. And a lot of teams don't want to pull the trigger on Kevin Durant because they don't think it's on the scope of their timeline as a franchise. The Heat, they're in this spot because they got Bam, who's going to be 28 and essentially right in the prime window. Tyler is just entering the prime, going to be 26 in the middle of the season. And Kaminga, you're kind of just thinking, all right, are they just scratching the surface here? He'll be 23 before the season starts. So not a baby, has experience, has been around a championship organization, knows the expectations, but thinks like, hey, you're bringing him in here and that starting spot on the wing is going to be his, right? And it's an interesting dynamic because the Heat are looking at it and being like, all right, you're going to give this guy north of $100 million. That essentially means he's going to start for you. If you're losing Wiggins, it's not the worst thing in the world. And people will say, well, what about the flexibility? Well, if it is a Wiggins deal, you wouldn't have had that anyway. You still have the Rozier, you still have the Rozier Duncan money that's going to come off the books if Duncan's still here. And, if he proves to have a decent year for you, I don't know what the ceiling of a Kuminga, Bam, Tyler, Kalel, Nico, Davion team is. You're skewing younger. There's not going to be a whole lot of pressure on it. But I think the thing you're looking at is like, all right, well, you're kind of investing in the ground floor. And maybe if he's awesome, people look at it and be like, oh, I'll trade for Jonathan Kaminga. Like, you're going to give him more minutes. Like, his per 36 last year was 22.6 points a game, 21.9 the year before that. So if you're going to swing him into this role that he's going to be one of your feature guys and you just predict like, hey, maybe it does predict. Good at getting to the free throw line. The Heat certainly need more guys who could pressure the rim. Not like the greatest playmaker in the world. So you're hoping like, hey, can there be more growth there? I think that the Heat do need more guys who can set their teammates up. But to be fair, I almost look at this like, hey, it's almost like you're getting, you're going younger than having Andrew Wiggins here. And Wiggins is not the best playmaker for his guys either. More of a like, hey, he's athletic and he can defend and he can be on the wing. But once he gets the ball, he's pretty much looking to score. But I think that there's probably in that Warriors culture, like, hey, Wiggins seemed like the all-around team guy. This was a guy who is trying to have his NBA career blossom while this team is trying to win for their guy Steph Curry. So that doesn't necessarily always equate to the best stuff between a coach and player. We've seen that before down here. So do I love it? I'm not in love with it, but I there's a part of me that's going to I respect the vision of this from the Heat more so than like the DeRozan path we talked a little bit about this morning, where it's like, I need something. I need another carrot than just you're plugging in DeMar DeRozan. Like, I'm sorry, that there needs to be something else there. At least this is like, hey, we're gonna skew young here, and we're gonna try some things, and we're gonna see what this guy can be. And either he's gonna blossom into the all-star he thinks he can become, or a really good player that then you have another asset and people are interested in it around the league, And certainly, like, I'm not down with the Heat doing this where they got to add, like, oh, you guys are going to get even, like, Jaquez Peller. No, it's like you're going to get your old guy back. You love him. Figure it out. The Heat don't really have a center to trade them, so will it be that intriguing? I don't know. Will they still be in a spot where they even want to give up on him? I don't know. But I think from a lot of the options that I've heard, this is one of the more intriguing ones that's out there for the Miami Heat, who, like, if they think, oh, we're going to get this done and you're going to give us our pick. No pick back. As a decide on the pick, there was an interesting mention from Ira Winderman. Ira Winderman said in the Sun Sentinel, he said on the workouts, we haven't heard a ton on workouts for the Miami Heat, and he said that his report was at a party familiar with the team's process confirmed to the Sun Sentinel the Heat have brought in, quote, more or less the same amount of players when previously holding a selection of first-round picks, but pointed out that they don't have as many coming in because they don't have a second-round pick this year. And the Heat, Ira points out, like, they don't do, like, media announcements like a lot of other teams. Like, if you guys, you'll see the memes of, like, Celtics or Pacers. They'll do, like, full-blown press conferences with guys who are coming in for workouts. And the Heat don't do that. We usually get the stories of those workouts in the aftermath. So that's where that's at. Is we're a little under a week away from the first round selections in the NBA draft, which I think it should go back to one day. I think them trying to make it a 2-day thing is a little silly. But, everybody tries to make the draft the NFL draft, and it's not. Even I get tired of the NFL draft. After 2 rounds, I'm like, okay. And in fact, I'm trying to remember, I think this year, I watched the first round. Second round, I think, was I at a Heat game? I feel like I was at a Heat game when they made the Savaianaya pick. And then third round, I'm Paul. Once you get to after 3, 4, and through, I'm on Twitter, and I'm getting it spoiled. I don't need to wait around, and I'm going to YouTube to find reviews on it. I'm not glued to my couch on it. So, like, you're trying to make the NBA draft a thing for multiple days? No, not into that.